goodness! Who used all the hot water? Oh, for heaven's sakes, I was gonna take a shower and there's no hot water in. Oh, now I know why there's no hot water. Haven't I talked to you about this? We have to share. Oh my goodness, we have an old hot water heater. Oh, for goodness sake. So what am I gonna do while we're waiting? Read you another chapter, of course. All right, where did we leave off? Let me see here. I think I'm gonna need my glasses. And I was all set to take a nice hot shower and go to bed. Oh, for goodness sakes. Let's see here. Oh, chapter 9, The Rescuing Elf. All right, here we go. Where do we leave off? Oh, they just took off on the OOOBird. All right. Acorn was holding on for dear life as he was trying to figure out what a tray table was. He could hear Sassy behind them yelling for Al to slow down. He nearly lost his hat. The wind was whistling by so fast. This bird was one crazy driver. He hoped they would get to the gulag in one piece. Does he have to go so fast? Acorn yelled to Snarky, trying to be heard over the wind. OOOBirds only have 2 speeds, fast and crazy fast, Snarky hollered back over his shoulder. This is fast! Oh, for goodness sake! Acorn cried as the bird began a full-speed dive towards their destination. Acorn just caught a glimpse of tall fences and a well-lit building before they landed just outside the prison. The bird found a clear area just beyond the fence and landed near a ditch that seemed to have a drain pipe at the end of it. Here we go, he said, turning his head back in a way that made Acorn's neck hurt just watching it. I won't go into gulags or anything like that. This'll do just fine, Snarky said as he slid off the bird's back. Acorn tried to as well, but he landed ungracefully on his back. Can you wait here until we get back? Acorn asked as he was dusting off his pants. I can wait till I get another request. If someone needs me, I have to go, the bird replied. Suddenly, a small blue object came streaking out of the clouds and bounced off the side of the OOOBird. Sassy ended up on the ground looking pretty unhappy.
Why did you guys take off without me?
Fairies are gonna keep up with anything. See, you did, Al replied as he was refluffing the feathers that Sassy had flattened when she crashed into him.
Mommy, the big bird is being mean to me again,
Sassy yelled. You're all right. Stop making such a fuss. We have a gulag to break into here. Snarky was patting her on the head, trying to calm her down. So, what's your plan? Acorn asked. He was getting worried that he might never make it back to the sleigh. We're going through this tunnel here, Snarky started. You mean the sewer? Acorn cut him off. As I said, we're going through this tunnel here. Sewer. Tunnel. Sewer. Tunnel. Sewer. It's a big, stinky sewer. I can smell it from here. Acorn was in no mood to be disagreed with. Who cares about the smell? It's a tunnel. Now stop interrupting. Snarky was getting irritated with Acorn now. We crawl in through the tunnel, and then we get to Magnolia's cell. We bust him out, run back here, then fly off on the bird. Simple. That's not simple, that's crazy, Acorn cried. You got a better plan? Let's hear it then. Snarky stood, tapping his foot impatiently. Well, not really. Acorn was staring down at the ground now, kicking at some rocks. But I still think your idea could get us shot or stuck in this gulag. Anybody ever tell you talk too much and you worry too much? Snarky asked. You're such a worrywart.
Worrywart, 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 worrywart. Acorn's a worrywart.
Sassy was flying around singing her new song in everyone's face.
Worrywart, 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 worrywart.
Punt! Suddenly, the OOOBird kicked out and Sassy went flying.
Worrywart!
Sassy's song continued into the distance. Thank you, Acorn said with relief. No problem, Al replied. So now can we get down to business? Snarky asked as he was taking off his pack. I guess. Acorn wasn't looking any too sure about crawling around through the sewer grate and into the inky blackness beyond. I just wish it didn't smell so bad. Don't let a little tunnel gas bother you, Snarky said as he started squeezing his small but lumpy body through the grate. Acorn came up behind him and gave him a good shove in the backside, not noticing as he did so that a bag of some sort came off of Snarky's belt. Right behind you, big guy. Do you need all this stuff on your belt? That's all me magic powders. I don't leave home without 'em. Acorn could understand that since he didn't like to go anywhere without his sack. What our two small adventurers didn't notice as they were squeezing through the grate was that the OOOBird had rapidly snapped up a bag that had fallen off of Snarky's belt. As Acorn and Snarky slowly disappeared into the darkness of the tunnel, Sassy came flying back, and she was pretty angry.
You're a naughty, naughty bird. Can you do that again? She asked.
The OOOBird was just starting to realize that maybe the thing he just swallowed may not have been food. Are you want to eat? Me hooga hooga. To kika you bleeba 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 again? Al was now flapping his wings as he spun around in circles on his back. Sassy was mystified by his performance.
Are you okay?
She wanted to know as she fluttered back out of reach of the OOOBird's spasms. Ika, 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 boo! The bird was shouting out as he was doing what looked like sit-ups at high speed. Heek, honka honka honky, bleak bleak bleak, twee! And with this last, he spat out an empty bag and then lay still. Sassy, not knowing what to do, just flew in circles slowly over the bird as he lay on the ground panting. Meanwhile, Acorn and Snarky were making their way under the gulag through a network of tunnels that Acorn was sure was a sewer. After all, he'd been in pipes enough times at the North Pole that he was pretty sure he knew what a sewer was, no matter what Snarky said. You sure you know where we're going? Of course, this ain't me first time down here, you know, said Snarky as he examined some markings on the wall. Almost there. Just then, Acorn noticed the shadow of something moving toward them. Hey, I think we've got company, he said as he moved closer to Snarky. What? Oh, probably just some sewer. I mean tunnel rats, Snarky replied over his shoulder. Well, the tunnel rats are headed this way, and they look hungry, Acorn said as he backed further into Snarky, pinning him up against the wall. Got any ideas? Snarky thrust out a small bag at Acorn. Use some of this. What's this? Acorn asked. Shrink powder. Just blow some at them and they shrink for about a half an hour, he said. Wow, that's pretty handy stuff. Got any grow powder? Acorn wanted to know for obvious reasons. Don't be silly. Who ever heard of grow powder? This ain't some fantasy world you're living in, kid. Acorn was shaking his head. A disappointed Acorn poured out a small portion of powder in his hand and blew it towards the rats. The effect was immediate, and suddenly the rats were smaller than Acorn's shoe. Wow! Can I take some of this back to the North Pole with me? Whoa! Give that back! That stuff is pretty hard to make! Snarky snatched the bag back from Acorn and went to fasten it back on his belt. Hi! Where's me bag of pixie dust? How should I know? It's not my job to keep track of your stuff. Acorn started off in the direction Snarky had pointed to before the rats had shown up. Come on, I don't want to be down here any longer than I have to be. Snarky followed along while grumbling to himself about his missing pixie dust. Shrink powder had been hard to make, pixie dust was even worse. And the stuff was dangerous to just leave laying around. Just a pinch of the stuff was all Santa needed to make the sleigh fly for one night. He hated to think of what would happen if someone got hold of a whole bag of this stuff. While Snarky was making his way with Acorn towards Magnolia's cell, Al the OOOBird was just starting to recover from eating more pixie dust than Santa would use in 100 years. Sassy had been flying in circles for several minutes waiting for Al to wake up. Gah! Hoopy! Wooble wooble wooble! He cried. Al's eyes looked like they were about to pop out of his head, which seemed to be spinning. The bird called out something that sounded like pineapple, and then took off straight up into the air and disappeared. Sassy circled around a few more times and settled to the ground. She was just starting to wonder where the bird had gone when suddenly he popped back into the sky overhead. Aloha! Gah! Nui nui! Gah! He blurted out as he settled to the ground in front of Sassy. 2 pineapples were strapped to his back. He reached back and untied the string holding them in place, and they fell to the ground beside him. Yummy! Pineapple! Hoopa hoopa! He shouted and then snatched them both up in his beak and swallowed them whole. You gah! Hoopa! Want some? He was staring at Sassy sort of cross-eyed with his head bobbing back and forth.
You didn't save me, Yeti,
Sassy said very sadly. Blibble 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 was all Al said, and then he just disappeared and then reappeared a few seconds later with a whole bunch of pineapples on his back. Hippy, hippy, flippy, dippy, he yelled and yanked the string holding them in place, and the whole pile fell at Sassy's feet. Here you go! Gah! I can't eat that many. You can have some. Sassy was trying to be nice. This giant bird was acting pretty crazy, and being nice seemed kind of like a good idea. I hate pineapple! Bloober, bloober, he said as he started snapping them up and swallowing them whole. Sassy carefully reached over and pulled one from the rapidly shrinking pile. It was warm, like it had been out in the sun.
Where did you get these?
Brazil! Of course, the bird continued gulping down pineapples. Sassy had no idea where Brazil was, but it seemed like it might be pretty far away. She worked at dragging the pineapple away from the pile so Al wouldn't gulp it down with the others he'd eaten almost the whole pile. Hey, it's pineapple! Gah! Yum yum! He said as he continued pecking away at the pile. Sassy shook her head and wondered when Snarky and Acorn would be coming back. Acorn and Snarky had just arrived under Magnolia's cell. Magnolia had been up pacing back and forth in his small cell all night long. Gulags aren't known for being warm or comfortable, and pacing was the only way he could keep from freezing. He was feeling particularly sad and lonely this evening. This was the 20th Christmas that he'd spent in the Gulag. No one here even said something nice to mark the occasion. In fact, no one here ever said anything at all, which was why he was sure his loneliness was starting to get to him when he thought he was hearing voices coming up from his floor drain. I can't get it to budge! It's stuck! Acorn said between breaths as he was balancing on Snarky's shoulders and pushing the drain cover from below. I'm going to need a crowbar or something to pry it up with. Hey, wait, I think I might have something in my bag. Well, hurry it up, I can't keep you on my shoulders all night. Snarky was starting to shake a bit from holding Acorn on his shoulders. Even though Acorn was pretty tiny, it was still a lot for Snarky to hold up because Snarky was tiny too. Acorn fished around in his bag and pulled out the burnt remains of his charcoal pencil. Got it, he said, then he shoved it through a hole in the grate and started prying. Just then, Magnolia tripped over the pencil sticking up through the grate. The pencil snapped off, and down below, Acorn lost his balance, and suddenly he and Snarky fell down in the muck. Ew, yuck! Snarky shouted as he fell into the stinky, slimy mess. Oh, this is nothing compared to the pipes under Santa's toilet, Acorn said, trying to sound tough. Suddenly, a big voice came booming through the grate. Is there someone down there? Magnolia was sure he was going crazy hearing voices from the pipes, talking about Santa's toilet of all things. Magnolia pried off the drain cover to try and see what might be under it. Magnolia, it's Snarky, said the troll. Snarky? How'd you fit into the drain? Magnolia was shaking his head now. I must be going crazy, he said to himself. The last time he'd seen Snarky, he'd been a full-size troll. Had a bit of a mishap with some shrinking powder, Snarky replied. I thought the effects were only temporary, Magnolia asked. Acorn had wanted to ask the same thing. Long story. Anyway, I'm here with a friend to bust you out of here. Snarky was pointing at Acorn now. Is that an elf down there with you? Magnolia asked. Yes, sir. Magnolia, sir. My name is Acorn, he replied, trying to sound respectful. Acorn remembered hearing Magnolia was one of the head elves before he disappeared. Please just call me Mag. Magnolia hated being called by his full name since it was one of those troublesome names that could be used for a boy or a girl like Randy or Kim. Magnolia poked his hand down through the drain and Snarky and Acorn each grabbed a finger. So, what's your plan for getting us out of here? He asked. Well, I thought we could shrink you down and you could run out through the tunnels with us, Snarky said. You want me to go out through a sewer? Magnolia had a pretty disgusted look on his face. Do you two have any idea what you smell like? I don't smell anything, Snarky replied. I told you it was a sewer, Acorn said rather forcefully. It's a tunnel. It's a sewer, Acorn and Magnolia said together. Well, how else are we going to get you out of here? Snarky wanted to know. He was a bit upset that nobody seemed to like the plan. If you can shrink me down, why don't we just go out the window? Magnolia was pointing to the barred opening that snow was now blowing in through. I'm sure I can fit through there if you shrink me down to size. Yeah, but how are we going to get all the way up there? Snarky asked. In reply, Magnolia picked them both up and placed them on the windowsill. We better hurry. I think one of the guards is coming. Indeed, they could all hear the sound of some heavy boots coming their way. Snarky pulled open his bag of shrink powder and blew some onto Magnolia just as the guard was coming into view. The guard wasn't sure what he was seeing as Magnolia rapidly shrank down to about 6 inches tall. Borde moi! The guard shouted. This is Russian for my goodness. He was rubbing his eyes, not sure if he was going crazy. Quick now, throw me a rope, Magnolia shouted from below. I ain't got no rope, Snarky cried. Wait, I've got something, Acorn said as he pulled the spool of thread out of his sack. Brilliant. Toss me a line before this guard starts believing what he's seeing, Magnolia cried. Acorn tossed the line down to Magnolia, then tied the other end off on one of the bars. Hurry, he shouted. The guard shook his head and then realized he was watching an escape in progress. Zuchleni Lagbat! That's Russian for prisoners escaping. The guard started fumbling for his keys as Magnolia began rapidly climbing the thread rope. Acorn and Snarky were pulling with all their might. Just as he reached the window ledge, the guard had the door open. He raced to the window, but all three had slid down the thread out the window before the guard could stop them. Okay, now what? Acorn panicked as he was a little out of breath from pulling Magnolia up the rope and then sliding down the other side. We get out of here quick before they let the dogs loose, Magnolia said, just as a siren began to wail from the top of a guard tower. Searchlights began to zip back and forth across the yard. Not more dogs, Acorn wailed. This way, quick! Snarky shouted as he ran off towards the fence. In the distance, dogs could be heard barking and men shouting. Acorn and Magnolia needed no further urging as they sprinted after the troll. It seemed like it was taking forever to get across the yard. Acorn was terrified that they might get squashed by a big boot or eaten by a dog, but Snarky seemed to know where they were going. Suddenly, a huge dog was standing in their path, snarling and drooling like it was ready to attack. Acorn fell back as the dog snapped at him, just barely missing him. Acorn was covered with hot drool and was sure he was a goner when Snarky jumped in front of him and blew powder in the dog's face. The dog shrank to the size of a mouse, and Snarky let out a snarl right back at it. Yay! 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 The dog cried as it ran off in the other direction. Thanks, Acorn said as Snarky helped him up, and all three continued running toward the fence. A few seconds later, they were through the fence. Snarky led them to the right, and within a few moments, they were back at the drain pipe. Sassy was sitting there on a pineapple, all alone, licking her fingers. In the distance, the gate could be heard opening, and barking dogs were coming near. Where's that crazy bird? Snarky shouted at Sassy. Sassy looked up from licking her fingers and said,
Oh, he left.
And that is the end of chapter 9, and I hope that by now there's some hot water. Remember, Bear, it's better to share. And that goes for all of you out there too. You can end up on the naughty list by using up all the hot water, especially if it's before Mommy and Daddy get a chance to take their shower. All right, Bear, you need to brush your teeth and go to bed. Same goes for you. Good night.